Deborah sat quietly on the edge of her bed, her hands folded tightly together, whispering softly, "Dear God, I know you hear me. Please take this pain away." Her stomach twisted and burned with a sharp ache, something she had been dealing with for months now. She had tried drinking warm water, eating light meals, even resting more, but nothing helped. Still, she believed deep in her heart that God would answer her prayers, just like he always had. Beatrice, her mother, stood at the door of the small bedroom, her arms folded, watching her daughter pray. Beatrice was a tall, strong woman with a commanding voice that made most people listen when she spoke. But inside, she was worried sick about her only child. She didn't understand why Deborah always wanted to pray on her own when they had Pastor Thomas, the man she believed was truly sent by God. Beatrice often said, "That man, Pastor Thomas, is called Daddy See-All for a reason. He knows things before they happen. He sees everything in the spirit. You, my daughter, should stop acting like you know better." Deborah sighed when her mother started again. She loved her mother, but she couldn't agree with the way she adored the pastor. In Deborah's eyes, the only person she needed was God, not some man on a church stage. That afternoon, when the sun was high and the heat pressed down on their small compound, Beatrice called Deborah sharply. "Come, wear your best dress, we're going to the church." Deborah's eyes widened. "Mummy, I don't want to go. Please, let me just pray here." "Stop that nonsense," Beatrice snapped. "Are you saying you know more than me? Are you saying your small prayers are better than the man of God's? You want to stay here and die of stomach pain, Ian?" Deborah's shoulders drooped. She knew there was no point arguing. Once her mother made up her mind, there was no changing it. They arrived at the church, a large cream-coloured building with a tall cross on top. The sound of drums and singing floated out from inside, though it wasn't a regular service day. Beatrice led Deborah straight to Pastor Thomas' office. The door was open, and inside sat a dark-skinned man with a thick beard and a big smile. He was wearing a white robe with gold patterns, and his hands sparkled with rings. "Ah, Sister Beatrice," he boomed, standing up. "And this is your daughter?" "Yes, Daddy See-All," Beatrice said, bowing her head slightly. "This is my only child. She's been suffering from stomach ulcer. I told her to come see you, but she's been stubborn." Pastor Thomas smiled at Deborah. "My dear, why are you stubborn? Do you not know that God has given us his servants to help you?" Deborah forced a small smile. "I pray to God myself, sir." The pastor chuckled. "That's good, but sometimes you need someone higher to stand in the gap for you." Without another word, he placed his hand on Deborah's forehead and began to pray loudly, his voice rising and falling. Beatrice closed her eyes and lifted her hands, whispering, "Amen, amen," as the pastor prayed. When he finished, Pastor Thomas sat back down, wiping sweat from his forehead. The Spirit says this matter is deep. She will need to come back for private prayers. Special prayers. Alone." Beatrice's eyes lit up. "Ah, thank you, man of God. I will bring her back." Deborah's heart sank. She didn't want to come back. Something in her spirit felt heavy, uncomfortable. She wanted to tell her mother, but she knew it would only lead to more scolding. That evening, as they walked home, Deborah tried once more. "Mummy, please, I don't want to go back." Beatrice stopped walking and turned to her sharply. "Deborah, you are stubborn. You think you know everything? You are just 17. I am your mother. If I say you are going, you are going." Deborah swallowed her words and looked down. She felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. "Yes, Ma." The next day was worse. Deborah's stomach burned so badly she couldn't even sit up. She prayed and prayed, whispering to God, "Please heal me, please heal me." But Beatrice stormed into her room, holding her shoes. "Get up, we are going back to church. The man of God said you need private prayers. This stubbornness will not help you." Deborah felt her heart beating fast. She didn't want to go, but how could she refuse her mother? At the church, Pastor Thomas was waiting. He smiled warmly when they came in. "Ah, Sister Beatrice, good afternoon. Leave her with me, you can wait outside." Deborah's eyes widened. "Mummy, no!" "Hush," Beatrice snapped. "Stay here and let the man of God help you." With that, she walked out, closing the door behind her. Inside, the room suddenly felt too small, too quiet. Pastor Thomas stood up slowly, his eyes fixed on Deborah. "Come, sit here, my dear." Deborah hesitated, her heart thumping. Something inside told her to run, but her legs felt heavy. She sat down slowly. Pastor Thomas placed a hand on her shoulder. "You are a special girl, Deborah. I see great things in your future." Deborah tried to smile politely, but her stomach twisted, not from the ulcer, but from something else. Fear. He leaned in closer. "Do you trust me?" Deborah's voice was small. "I trust God." He smiled. "Good. But you must also trust the one God has sent to help you." Outside the door, Beatrice waited, humming softly, confident that the man of God was working wonders for her daughter. She didn't know that inside, Deborah's nightmare was only just beginning. Deborah sat stiffly on the edge of the chair, her palms clenched tightly on her lap. Pastor Thomas, or Daddy Seal as everyone called him, sat calmly behind his desk, his large gold-ringed hand resting lightly on her shoulder. At first, Deborah thought it was just part of the prayers. She had seen pastors lay hands on people before. It was normal, wasn't it? But as the minutes stretched on, she noticed his hand wasn't staying in one place. It began to move slowly, tracing the edge of her arm, sliding down toward her waist. Deborah shifted uncomfortably in her seat, trying to inch away. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. Something didn't feel right. "Relax, my dear," Pastor Thomas said softly, his deep voice calm. "You are too tense. Deliverance prayers need your heart to be open." Deborah looked down, biting her lower lip nervously. She thought of her mother waiting outside, probably smiling and humming, believing that her daughter was finally receiving the special touch of God. Pastor Thomas leaned in closer, the smell of his cologne thick in the air. "There are some prayers, Deborah," he whispered, "that need a little more connection. Some kinds of prayers answer faster when you obey the instructions of the man of God." Deborah frowned, confused. "What do you mean, sir?" she asked quietly. His hand slid a little further around her waist. "You don't need to understand everything, my dear. Just trust me. I am here for your good. Everything I do is for your deliverance." Deborah's stomach twisted, and this time it wasn't from the ulcer. She pulled back slightly, trying to stand, but he gently pushed her down. "Stay, Deborah," he said, his voice firm now. Before she could react, he suddenly leaned forward and pressed a kiss on her cheek. Deborah shot up from the chair immediately, eyes wide, her breath catching in her throat. "No, sir, please, I want to go," she stammered, taking a step back. But Pastor Thomas's face darkened, his smooth smile vanished, and his eyes turned sharp. "Sit down," he ordered in a low voice. Deborah shook her head, panicking. "I want to go to my mother." "Sit down," he barked, standing up abruptly. He walked around the desk, towering over her. Deborah's legs trembled as she tried to step away, but he moved quickly, grabbing her wrist tightly. "Listen to me," he hissed. "Whatever happens in this room stays in this room. Do you understand me?" Tears filled Deborah's eyes. She shook her head, trying to pull free, but his grip only tightened. "You think you're too holy to follow instructions, eh? You think your small, childish prayers can save you? God sent you to me, Deborah. I am the one he speaks to." Before Deborah could scream or call for help, he forced her down roughly, whispering over and over, "This is for your deliverance. This is for your deliverance." Deborah's mind went blank. She felt herself slip into a strange, frozen place, her heart beating painfully, her stomach burning, tears running down her cheeks. When it was over, Pastor Thomas stood up calmly, adjusting his robe and smiling softly. "You see, my dear, sometimes God's ways are not our ways. You will feel better soon. This pain you have been carrying will go away now." Deborah sat on the floor, trembling, her clothes dishevelled, her face wet with silent tears. She felt crushed, broken. He leaned down and gently touched her head, like a father blessing his child. "You are special, Deborah. Don't tell anyone what we did here today. Your mother will not understand. If you tell anyone, you will only bring curses upon yourself." Deborah's lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, let me go." Pastor Thomas smiled warmly. "Of course, my dear, you can go, but remember, whatever happens in this room stays in this room." He opened the door and called out cheerfully, "Sister Beatrice, it is done. She is free." Beatrice hurried in, her face full of joy and gratitude. "Ah, thank you, man of God. God bless you. Thank you for helping my daughter." Deborah stood slowly, her legs shaking. She forced a small smile for her mother's sake, but inside, her world had shattered. As they walked home, Beatrice kept talking excitedly, praising the pastor and saying how Deborah would start feeling better soon. But Deborah stayed silent, staring down at the ground, her heart heavy with fear, confusion, and a deep pain that no one could see. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know who to tell. She only knew one thing. This was the beginning of a nightmare she had never imagined. Sunday morning came with its usual bright sun and the noisy sounds of neighbours hurrying to church. Deborah sat quietly on her bed, staring at her Bible, but she wasn't reading it. She was lost in her own storm of thoughts. Her heart was heavy. Her mother, Beatrice, called from the living room. "Deborah, are you not ready yet? We will be late for service." Deborah sighed softly and stood up, smoothing her simple dress and pulling her scarf over her head. She looked at herself in the mirror. The 17-year-old girl staring back looked tired, sad, and older than her age. Her stomach ulcer still pained her, but that wasn't the real pain anymore. She joined her mother, and together they walked to church. The church hall was packed, the choir singing lively songs as people clapped and danced. On the big stage stood Pastor Thomas, Daddy Seall, smiling confidently in his shiny white suit. His voice boomed over the microphone. "You are stepping into your season of prosperity. Your enemies will see you rise and they will bow." The crowd roared, "Amen." Beatrice clapped excitedly, turning to Deborah. "Ah, listen to him, Deborah. Daddy Seall is speaking directly to us." Deborah nodded weakly, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She looked around the church, at all the women waving their handkerchiefs, the men shouting, "Ride on, Pastor!" the children smiling, and the young girls gazing up at the pastor like he was a shining star. Deborah felt like standing up and screaming. She wanted to tell them all, "This man is a monster!" But she knew they wouldn't believe her. Even her own mother wouldn't believe her. She lowered her head, tears stinging her eyes. After the service, Beatrice turned to Deborah eagerly. "Let's go and thank the man of God for his dedication to your case. We must show appreciation so that the blessings can continue flowing." Deborah's heart sank. "Mummy, please." "Shush. You don't know what's good for you. Follow me." With no other choice, Deborah followed her mother to the pastor's office. A line of women and church members were waiting, some holding small thank you gifts, others just waiting to touch his hand or get a quick word of blessing. Suddenly, Deborah noticed something strange. Mary, one of the young girls from the youth choir, came storming out of Pastor Thomas' office. Her face was red with anger and she wiped tears from her eyes as she pushed past the waiting crowd. Deborah's eyes widened. She wanted to reach out, to grab Mary's arm and ask what happened, but before she could move, her mother nudged her forward. "It's our turn, Deborah. Let's go in." Inside the office, Daddy Seall smiled his usual wide smile. "Ah, Sister Beatrice, my faithful daughter, and Deborah, my special girl." He rose from his chair, arms wide, giving Beatrice a short hug and placing a hand on Deborah's head. Beatrice beamed. "We came to say thank you, man of God. Deborah has been looking better." Deborah flinched at the lie, but she stayed silent. "Good, good," Pastor Thomas nodded. "She will still need more private prayers. You know how these things work. Spiritual matters are not rushed." Beatrice nodded eagerly. Yes, man of God, I will wait outside." And just like that, Deborah was left alone again. As soon as the door clicked shut, Pastor Thomas turned to Deborah, his eyes darkening. "Come, my dear." Deborah's legs trembled. She couldn't take it any more. She fell to her knees on the floor, her hands clasped tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Please, sir, stop. You're hurting me. I'm just a child. I want to be normal. I want to go to school, to play, to live, like a normal teenage girl. Please." For a moment, Pastor Thomas just stood there, looking down at her with an unreadable expression. Then, slowly, a smile crept onto his face. "I like them young and fresh," he murmured softly, crouching down to her level. "You don't understand, Deborah. I am blessing you. I am pouring special grace into your life. You will thank me one day," Deborah sobbed, shaking her head. "Please, no, please, let me go." But he ignored her, just like the last time. Frustrated, scared, broken, Deborah felt herself pulled back into the nightmare. She wanted to scream, but she knew no one would hear her. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Outside the door, her mother waited patiently, smiling, thinking her daughter was inside receiving powerful prayers. But inside, Deborah's heart was shattering again. This wasn't deliverance. This was something dark, something evil, and Deborah didn't know how much longer she could survive it. When Deborah got home that day, her heart was heavy. She stood quietly in the doorway of their small home, watching her mother, Beatrice, sitting on a stool in the corner, humming happily as she cleaned her jewelry box. Deborah opened her mouth slightly, wanting to speak, to tell her mother everything, to pour out the pain, the shame, the confusion, the truth. But as she stood there, frozen, she saw her mother's cheerful, carefree face. Beatrice looked so proud, so sure, so convinced that their lives were perfect because of Pastor Thomas. Deborah knew how it would go. Her mother would call her stubborn, accuse her of lying, maybe even slap her. She had tried before, and it had ended in shouting, in tears, in heartbreak. Slowly, without a word, Deborah turned and went into her room. She closed the door, sank onto her bed, and buried her face in her pillow. Silent sobs shook her small body until sleep finally dragged her into darkness. The weeks that followed were strangely normal. Pastor Thomas had gone on an outreach program in another city, and the church buzzed with excitement about his mighty miracles and powerful ministration. Beatrice, like many others, counted the days until Daddy Seol would return. For Deborah, those 2 weeks felt like a short break from the nightmare. She focused on her schoolwork, helped with house chores, and tried to push aside the deep pain inside her. But her body was changing, and she didn't notice it soon enough. One afternoon, Deborah was scrubbing the floor when suddenly her head spun. The room tilted, her knees buckled, and before she could call for help, she slumped to the ground. Her mother's scream filled the air. "Deborah! Deborah!" The neighbour, Mama Ada, rushed over from next door. Together they splashed water on Deborah's face, fanned her, and prayed loudly. Slowly, Deborah's eyes fluttered open. "Ah, thank God," Mama Ada said with relief. "Beatrice, she fainted. Oh, but why? Has she been eating well?" Beatrice nodded quickly. Yes, she's been eating. Maybe it's the ulcer again." "But—" Mama Ada frowned thoughtfully, her sharp eyes watching Deborah closely. After helping the girl lie down on the bed, she gently touched Deborah's wrist, checked her pulse, and examined her face carefully. Then, with a quiet voice, she pulled Beatrice aside into the corner of the room. "Sister Beatrice," she whispered, "have you not noticed anything different about Deborah lately?" Beatrice blinked, confused. "Different? What do you mean?" Mama Ada lowered her voice. Her face, her body. "I don't want to say something wrong, but have you thought about the possibility that she might be pregnant?" Beatrice's mouth dropped open. "Pregnant? God forbid!" she hissed, her hand flying to her chest. "My own Deborah? Never! She's a good Christian girl." But the seed of doubt had been planted. That evening, unable to sleep, Beatrice sat at the edge of Deborah's bed. She watched her daughter silently, thinking back on the past few months. Finally, the next morning, she made up her mind. She would do a pregnancy test, just to prove Mama Ada wrong. The test came back positive. Beatrice's hands trembled as she held the result slip. Her heart pounded in her chest. Anger, confusion, betrayal, and disbelief swirled inside her all at once. She stormed into Deborah's room, waving the slip in the air. "Deborah! Deborah! Who got you pregnant? Who is responsible for this shame?" Deborah's eyes widened in shock. "Mummy!" "Answer me, you useless girl!" Beatrice screamed. "Who destroyed your life? Who put this shame on our family? Tell me!" Tears rolled down Deborah's cheeks. She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. It's Pastor Thomas," she whispered. Beatrice froze. For a long moment, there was silence. Then Beatrice let out a sharp, angry laugh. "Pastor Thomas? Deborah, are you mad? How dare you lie like that? Pastor Thomas, the man of God, the one who has been praying for you, helping you, blessing you. You dare call his name in this mess you've made?" Deborah's body shook as she wept. "Mummy, I've been trying to tell you. You wouldn't listen. You forced me to keep going to him. He touched me. He hurt me. He kept saying it was for deliverance. Mummy, please believe me." Beatrice stepped back, her face pale. No, you're lying. You must be lying." Deborah's voice cracked as she cried out. "You are not fit to be a mother. You chose your pastor over your own daughter. I was trying to tell you, but you were too busy praising him, too busy trusting him blindly. Look where it has brought me now, Mummy, look." Beatrice stood frozen, her hands shaking. She looked at her daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in a long while. She saw the pain, the brokenness, the sorrow in Deborah's eyes. Her heart twisted painfully. She stood torn, trapped between two truths. The trust she had in her powerful, respected pastor, and the raw, undeniable pain of her only child. Outside, the evening sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the small home. Inside, a mother and daughter faced each other, their world quietly shattering. Watch out for part 2.